have a coworker, and nothing is ever her fault. I mean, any mistakes that she makes are because somebody else screwed up. I'm so tired of her poor me attitude. Why does she always have to be a victim?
It really is frustrating to deal with someone who's always playing the victim. I've had those people in my life, and it is no fun. So I'm going to talk to you about what to do with a coworker like that. But first, let's try to understand a little bit about what actually happens with someone who is acting in that way and why they act that way. And then we'll talk about what to do about it. First of all, just describing a victim. I mean, you could do it, I'm sure, by interacting with this coworker. Victims complain more than they act. They're always having a pity party, and they are not responsible. They are not to blame. They're never to blame. And if they're not to blame, then somebody else is. And they're always looking for someone else to take that responsibility. And I don't know about you, but this seems like a terrible way to live for me. It really gives such a poor attitude and affects their performance and affects the attitudes of everyone around them about them. But why on earth would someone do that? Well, you know what? When you think about it, it's kind of convenient because they don't have to take responsibility themselves. They can feel self-righteous and justified because, after all, they're not to blame. Someone else is. And it's really a way to get some sympathy for a while. Not for a very long while, because after a while they wear people out and people don't want to be around them. So if that is the case, then we have to know what's the difference between victimhood and responsibility, and how can you get someone around you to know that difference and actually take some responsibility. I always think about an experience I had right after Hurricane Katrina. I live here in the Deep South, and we were in the hurricane that destroyed so many homes and lives. And as a psychologist, I was working as a mental health worker in the evacuation centers. And I remember one particular woman who was always coming up to the desk. She had a complaint a minute. I can't believe you gave me a size 7.5 shoe when I told you I wore a 7, she'd say. And I remember her saying, and this is the 3rd day in a row we've had chicken. But I remember another couple who would come up to the desk, and one day they came and they said, you know what, we've noticed that the bathrooms here are really dirty. What if we clean the bathrooms once an hour? My husband will clean the men's room, I'll clean the ladies' room. Those were people who were taking responsibility. They were devastated just like the other lady, but they had a different attitude. They were doing all they could with all they had, where they were at that time. And that's what responsibility is. Doing all you can with all you have where you are right now. And I certainly hope that that's the way you approach it, but not so your coworker. So let's talk about some ways to deal with that coworker. First of all, don't let her see you sweat. People who have that kind of complaining and victim-like attitude sometimes secretly get a little bit of pleasure in seeing that others are kind of ruffled. So don't give her that pleasure. The second thing I would suggest to you is when she starts complaining or when she starts blaming, model what you want her to do. Take responsibility if you have some part in it, and acknowledge what that is, but then also point out the things that are within her control and say, let's work together to get that done. I can do this and you can do that, or to solve that problem, or to keep that from happening again. If that doesn't work, you may need to go and talk with your manager. But don't just go and start complaining like your coworker does by saying, she's always complaining, she's always acting like a victim. Don't just give a general complaint, but instead think about specific incidents, specific examples that you can share with your manager, and how her behavior affected the team's ability to get the job done, or affected teamwork itself. And ask for your manager's help, or ask for suggestions from your manager about how to handle it. And hopefully that will help. But if it doesn't, then you have another option, and that is use a little behavior modification, maybe just like you would do with your own child. remember this principle: behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. So don't reward that kind of behavior. When she's complaining and blaming, just look the other way. Go on about your business, and hopefully others will do the same. Don't give it attention. But if you catch her taking responsibility or acknowledging maybe her part in something, give her a big smile, give her as many compliments as possible. In other words, let that bring positive attention. Now, I know you're saying, well, I shouldn't have to do behavior modification like you would with a child. This is supposed to be an adult. I get it. But you know what? Her behavior is getting under your skin. And the last thing I'd say to you is, do not give this woman power over you. Don't let her rob you of your own positive attitude. She can start to become so irritating that then you become irritable, and that's not what you want to have. So you make a choice about how you're going to deal with this, and don't give her power over you and your own attitude. Well, that's it for today, and we thank you so much for joining us at the Magnetic Workplaces Show. I'm Dr. Bev Smallwood, and we'll see you next time.